Title: Something follows you if you run in the woods. Help this channel grow. Like the video, leave a comment and subscribe for more stories. This helps us a lot. Thank you. The story begins. Some places in the world have rules no one writes down. The woods behind his town had one of them. People hiked there, camped there, jogged there. But the locals all knew something they never said out loud. If you walk, you're fine. If you stand still, you're fine. But if you run, something runs with you. And it never runs behind you. He believed in terrain maps, elevation gain, hydration levels, and pacing strategies. He believed in physical limits and measurable effort. He believed that exhaustion explained hallucinations and that fear was just adrenaline misfiring. That was before Blackwood Forest. Blackwood was not famous. It wasn't a national park. It wasn't a tourist site. It was simply a large stretch of preserved woodland on the edge of a quiet northeastern town, the kind of place with weathered mailboxes and sagging porches. The forest had no dramatic cliffs, no scenic waterfalls, no remarkable landmarks. It was just trees. Dense, old-growth trees with thick bark and knotted roots that rose like veins through the soil. Ethan started running there because it was quiet. He had moved back to town after a failed attempt at making it in the city. The silence was therapeutic. The air smelled like damp earth and pine sap. The ground was soft enough to absorb impact. The trail was narrow but manageable, curving in long, predictable bends. For the first few weeks, nothing unusual happened. He would jog 3 miles in, circle a clearing, and return before dusk. The forest shifted with seasons. Leaves thickened overhead. The light filtered differently each evening. But it always felt stable, measurable. Until the first time he ran deeper than usual. It wasn't intentional. He had been frustrated that day. The kind of frustration that sits under the skin and demands motion. So he pushed past his usual turning point and kept going. The trail narrowed. The trees grew closer together, their branches knitting above like interlocked fingers. The air became heavier. Not colder. Just denser, as though it resisted movement. That was when he noticed the silence. Not the absence of wind. The absence of everything. No birds. No insects. No distant cracking of branches. Just the steady rhythm of his shoes hitting soil. He slowed instinctively. The moment he slowed, the forest exhaled. A faint rustling resumed somewhere behind him. Leaves shifted. Something small skittered through brush. He stood still. Normal forest sounds returned in fragments. He told himself it was coincidence. He began running again. The silence returned instantly. It was immediate. Absolute. Like someone had flipped a switch. His breathing became the only sound in existence. He felt something then, not fear, not yet, but awareness. As though the woods were no longer a location but an observer. He told himself it was psychological projection. He kept running. About half a mile later he felt it. Not a sound. Not a sight. A presence that matched his pace. Not behind him. Beside him. It was impossible to see clearly through the trees at that speed. The undergrowth blurred into streaks of dark green and brown. But in his peripheral vision, something kept alignment with him. A shape that maintained exact distance. Whenever he sped up, it sped up. When he slowed slightly, it adjusted. Always level with him. His heart rate spiked, but he refused to stop. Because some instinct told him stopping would confirm something he did not want confirmed. He reached a clearing he didn't recognize. The ground dipped slightly. The trees thinned. He finally forced himself to stop. The forest resumed breathing. Insects chirped tentatively. A crow called from somewhere distant. There was nothing beside him. No footprints in the soft soil except his own. He stood there for nearly 2 minutes. Nothing happened. He walked back the way he came. The entire walk back was uneventful. That night he told no one. He returned the next day. This time he stayed on his usual path. Nothing happened. The day after that, curiosity overpowered caution. He ran past the usual turn again. The silence hit sooner. This time he didn't wait to see if it would match his pace. He sprinted. Full acceleration. And that was when he heard it. Not footsteps. Not movement. Breathing. Measured. Close. Level with his left shoulder. It wasn't loud. It wasn't aggressive. It was calm. Controlled. As though whatever produced it wasn't exerting effort. He didn't look. He ran harder. The breathing remained steady. Unchanging. After nearly a minute of sprinting, his lungs began to burn. The breathing beside him did not change. No strain. No fatigue. Just steady inhalation and exhalation. He veered sharply off the path, cutting through dense underbrush. The presence adjusted instantly. Still level. Still matching. He could feel it now, not touching him, but occupying space parallel to him. A distortion in perception, like heat rising off pavement. He tripped over a root and collapsed forward. The moment he hit the ground, everything stopped. Silence shattered. Birds exploded into sound above. The breathing vanished. He lay there, face pressed into soil, heart hammering violently. He turned his head slowly. Nothing stood beside him. But the ground next to where he had fallen was disturbed. The leaves were flattened in a long line. Not footprints. Not paw prints. Just a depression that ran parallel to his path. As if something heavy had been moving without legs. He did not run back. He walked. The forest behaved normally. That night he researched animal behavior. Mountain lions did not move that way. Bears were heavier, louder. No local wildlife matched what he experienced. Still, he rationalized it. Adrenaline, stress, overexertion. He waited 3 days before returning. On the 4th day he entered the forest walking. Everything was normal. He reached the deep section. Still normal. He stood there for a long moment. Nothing. Then he began to jog. The silence arrived instantly. He did not speed up. He maintained a slow, steady pace. That was when he saw it clearly for the first time. Not beside him. Ahead of him. Through the trees. A shape moving parallel, weaving effortlessly between trunks. It had no defined edges. It was darker than shadow but not solid. Its movement did not disturb leaves. It did not bend branches. It glided, matching him. He slowed. It slowed. He stopped. It stopped. Its outline trembled faintly as if stabilizing. Then it shifted. In a way that made his stomach drop. It turned toward him. There was no face, no features, but its orientation changed. And he understood something without being told. It wasn't following him. It was pacing him. Waiting for him to commit. To run. Because when he ran, it didn't chase. It accompanied. And it was learning. A cold realization crept in. It wasn't trying to catch him. It was measuring him. His speed. His endurance. His fear. He took one step backward. The shape mirrored the step forward. Closing the distance slightly. He felt the shift in rules. When he ran, it stayed beside him. When he stopped, it held position. But when he retreated, it advanced. The forest was completely silent now. He forced himself not to turn his back. He walked sideways, keeping it in view. It glided, maintaining alignment. Never blinking. Never wavering. His pulse pounded in his ears. He felt something else now. Not just fear. Recognition. As though this thing had been waiting longer than he understood. He reached the edge of the deeper section and stepped into a brighter patch of trees. Sunlight cut through. The shape flickered. Then vanished. Not fading. Not dissolving. Just gone. The forest sounds returned abruptly. He stood alone. But something fundamental had changed. It had not attacked. It had not touched him. It had done something worse. It had proven it could match him. Exactly. And it had shown him that the only time it truly engaged was when he ran. He walked home slowly that day. He did not sleep that night. Because long after he left the woods, he began to feel something keeping pace with him. Just beyond the edge of vision. And for the first time in his life, Ethan understood a rule that had never been spoken. Some things in the woods don't chase. They wait for you to run. Ethan did not return to Blackwood Forest for 9 days. He replaced his evening runs with treadmill sessions at a small local gym. Artificial lighting. Music through ceiling speakers. Televisions mounted overhead. Predictable air circulation. Predictable surfaces. Nothing matched his pace there. Nothing altered the silence. He convinced himself that the forest had created a controlled psychological loop. Isolation amplifies perception. The brain fills gaps in sensory input. Stress creates patterns where none exist. By the 5th day, the tension began to dull. By the 7th, he felt almost foolish. By the 9th, the memory felt exaggerated. That was the night it appeared outside the woods. He had gone for a short jog through town just before sunset. The streets were mostly empty. The sidewalks cracked and uneven. Porch lights flickering on as daylight thinned. He kept his pace slow, measured, comfortable. Half a mile in, he felt it. Not beside him. Ahead. Across the street. Moving parallel between parked cars and telephone poles. At first it looked like a trick of lighting, long shadows cast by trees swaying in evening wind. But the wind wasn't strong enough to explain the synchronization. Every step he took, the shadow advanced exactly 1 step. When he shortened his stride, it shortened. When he lengthened it, it adjusted instantly. It did not cross the street. It did not fall behind. It remained opposite him, using the dark between houses like cover. His throat tightened. The forest had boundaries. Town did not. He slowed to a walk. The shape continued moving. It did not need him to run anymore. That realization drained the air from his lungs. He stopped completely. The shape stopped. It stood at the edge of a driveway across from him, half merged with a hedge. Still no defined features. Still darker than surrounding shadow. But now closer than it had ever been. Streetlights flickered on fully. For half a second, illumination sharpened the world into clarity. The shape did not sharpen. It absorbed light, as though brightness made it denser. Ethan turned and walked home without accelerating. The shape kept pace. He refused to run. Every instinct screamed to sprint. He did not, because he understood something now. Running was not escape. Running was invitation. He reached his house and stepped inside without looking back. He locked the door, stood in the entryway, waited. Nothing scratched at the door. Nothing moved outside. No sound. He told himself it couldn't cross thresholds. That houses meant something. That walls mattered. He went upstairs. That night he did not close his bedroom curtains. He didn't want reflection. He didn't want to mistake his own silhouette for something else. He lay awake until after midnight. Somewhere between exhaustion and shallow sleep, he felt the shift. The sensation of alignment. Not in the room. Outside it. He opened his eyes. The streetlight outside cast pale light through the window. At first nothing seemed wrong. Then he noticed it. The shadow cast by the tree in his yard. It was moving. But the branches were still. The shadow stretched unnaturally across the lawn. Longer. Thinner. Reaching toward the house. Not swaying. Sliding. He sat upright in bed. The shadow reached the base of the house and stopped. It did not climb the wall. It did not enter. It remained pressed against the exterior. Waiting. He did not sleep again. The next morning the lawn looked normal. No distortion. No unnatural markings. Just damp grass and fallen leaves. He did not run that day. He avoided physical exertion entirely. The following afternoon, while walking to his car, he noticed something else. His own shadow. It lagged. Only slightly. But enough. When he stepped forward, it followed a fraction of a second late. When he stopped, it took an extra beat to align. He tested it deliberately. Short steps. Abrupt halts. Quick pivots. The delay was subtle. Almost imperceptible. But real. A sickness coiled in his stomach. It wasn't matching him anymore. It was calibrating. That night he stayed inside with every light on. He sat in the living room back against the wall, television muted. He didn't want background noise masking subtle changes. Hours passed. Around 1:12 a.m. the power flickered. Just once. In that split second of darkness he felt it beside him. Not across the street. Not outside. Beside him. When the lights returned, nothing stood there. But the temperature in the room had dropped noticeably. His breath didn't fog. It wasn't cold enough for that. But the air felt thinner. Occupied. He stood slowly. Walked toward the hallway mirror. He didn't know why. Perhaps to confirm that he was still alone. The mirror reflected the room accurately. Couch. Lamp. Staircase. Him. And something slightly offset behind him. Not touching. Not fully separate. A deeper patch of darkness aligned with his spine. He froze. The shape in the reflection did not freeze. It leaned closer. Its outline blurred into his shoulders. He did not turn around. He knew turning would change something. Instead, he stepped sideways. The reflection's shadow did not follow immediately. It corrected itself a second later. Like buffering. He backed away from the mirror. The offset darkness realigned. Perfect. As if nothing had been wrong. He understood now. It wasn't bound to the woods. The woods had simply been where he activated it. And it had learned. It had studied his movement patterns. His acceleration. His limits. Now it was studying proximity. Integration. Over the next 3 days he avoided all running. He walked slowly everywhere. Deliberate. Controlled. But the shadow distortions increased. Streetlights flickered when he passed beneath them. Mirrors showed slight delays. Photographs on his phone contained faint smudges beside him that he didn't remember seeing in person. He began covering mirrors with blankets. Avoiding windows after dark. Sleeping with lights on. The exhaustion eroded his rational defenses. On the 4th night he made a mistake. He dreamed he was back in the forest. Running. The silence returned. The breathing matched him. But in the dream he didn't stop. He pushed harder. Faster. until his legs burned and lungs collapsed inward. And beside him, the shape began to change. It grew taller, more defined. Its outline sharpened into something nearly human. Nearly. He woke abruptly, heart racing, drenched in sweat, and still moving. His legs were kicking violently against the sheets, simulating a sprint. The room was dark. The lights were off. He did not remember turning them off. Moonlight cut across the floor. His shadow stretched long against the opposite wall. But it wasn't alone. A second shadow overlapped it, slightly misaligned. Head tilted at a different angle. Arms hanging longer than his own. He stopped moving. The second shadow stopped half a second later. He sat up slowly. The second shadow remained reclined for a breath longer, then snapped upright into alignment. A cold certainty settled over him. It no longer needed the forest. It no longer needed him to physically run. It only needed the memory of running. And that memory replayed every night. Inside his body. Inside his mind. The rule had evolved. It wasn't something that followed when you ran in the woods. It was something that synchronized when you accelerated. And now, even lying still, his body remembered the rhythm of sprinting. His heart beating. His muscles firing. His breath pulling fast air. And somewhere in the dark, something kept pace with that rhythm. He left the lights off that night. Because he understood something else now. Light did not repel it. Light defined it. Darkness at least blurred the edges. As he lay there, unmoving, he felt it shift closer. Not touching. Not yet. But near enough that the air around him felt shared. Measured breathing filled the room. Calm. Controlled. Not matching his pace anymore. Setting it. And for the first time, Ethan realized something worse than being followed. He realized it was no longer keeping up with him. It was beginning to lead. Ethan stopped leaving the house. Not because he believed walls would protect him, but because movement had become negotiation. Every step felt observed. Every change in pace felt recorded. He walked slowly from room to room, deliberately controlling his breathing. He kept his heart rate low. He avoided stairs. Avoided sudden turns. Avoided anything that might resemble urgency. Because urgency triggered it. He understood that now. The thing did not need distance. It needed acceleration. 3 days passed in suffocating stillness. On the fourth morning, his phone buzzed with an emergency weather alert. Severe thunderstorm warning. High winds. Flash flooding possible. He ignored it. Until the power went out. The house fell into heavy gray silence as clouds swallowed the sky. Rain began as a distant hiss and quickly escalated into a violent sheet against the roof and windows. He remained seated on the living room floor back against the couch. Still, breathing evenly. Then the smoke detector chirped. What? A sharp electronic pulse from the hallway. Low battery. A small, harmless sound. But sudden. His heart jumped. Just slightly. And in that microscopic spike he felt it shift closer. The air changed. Pressure gathered near his spine. He closed his eyes. Slowed his breathing again. The detector chirped a second time. His pulse ticked upward in anticipation. The presence aligned tighter behind him. Not touching. Layering. The storm intensified. Wind rattled the windows. A branch snapped somewhere outside with a loud crack against siding. His body flinched before he could stop it. And in that flinch the thing moved. Not a glide. Not a shadow slide. Step. For the first time he heard it move independently. A faint compression of floorboards behind him. Wait. Actual weight. His throat constricted. He stood slowly. No sudden motion. He walked toward the hallway. Each step measured. Each breath shallow. The hallway felt narrower than usual. The smoke detector chirped again. Closer now. He reached up and removed it from the ceiling carefully. The chirping stopped. Silence returned. But the presence did not retreat. It hovered just behind his left shoulder. Close enough that his skin prickled with cold. He moved toward the kitchen to find batteries. The storm outside escalated into a roar. The house groaned. A window shattered somewhere upstairs. The sound exploded through the structure. His body reacted before thought could intercept. He ran. 3 steps. Only 3. But it was enough. The thing did not align beside him. It did not pace. It did not glide. It lunged. The impact was not physical in a conventional sense. It was pressure and weight and velocity colliding with his back. He slammed into the kitchen counter as the air left his lungs. Darkness flickered at the edges of his vision. He felt something pass through him. Cold. Heavy. Expansive. And then he was upright again. But wrong. The kitchen looked slightly distorted. Edges too sharp. Shadows too deep. The storm outside sounded distant, muted. He tried to inhale deeply. The breath felt delayed, like air was entering someone else first. He turned slowly toward the hallway. His body turned a fraction of a second later. The misalignment was subtle, but catastrophic. He moved his hand. It followed, but not perfectly, not instantly. The thing wasn't beside him anymore. It wasn't behind him. It was over him, wearing him, testing movement from the inside. His heart began to race uncontrollably, and as it did, he felt something else accelerate. Not in the room, not in the house, but within the rhythm of his pulse. It matched the beat, then exceeded it. His legs moved without conscious command, toward the front door, each step faster than he intended. His body was building momentum. He tried to slow. His muscles ignored the request. He reached the door, opened it. Rain slammed against his face, cold and blinding. He stepped onto the porch. The storm swallowed him, and then he ran. Not by choice, not fully. His body sprinted down the driveway into the street, feet splashing through pooled water. The world blurred. Trees bent violently in wind. Lightning fractured the sky, and beside him, no, not beside, ahead, the shape ran in front of him now, clearer than ever before, taller, more defined, limbs elongated and fluid, head slightly angled as though listening backward. It wasn't pacing him anymore. It was pulling him, drawing him into speed. He tried to stop. His muscles refused. His lungs burned. His heart hammered so violently it felt structural. The neighborhood thinned. Streetlights flickered uselessly in the storm. He crossed into the path leading toward Blackwood Forest. Mud sucked at his shoes. Branches whipped against his arms. But he did not slow. The shape ahead entered the tree line. He followed. The moment he crossed beneath the canopy, the storm noise diminished unnaturally. The forest absorbed the chaos. Silence returned, except for running. His running, and the other rhythm in front of him. The ground beneath him felt wrong, softer, deeper, like layers of disturbed soil. He realized with dawning horror that the path wasn't the same. The trees were closer, leaning inward. The clearing ahead pulsed faintly with unnatural dimness. The shape stopped in the center of it. He did not. He ran directly into it. There was no impact, no collision, just immersion, like stepping into cold water. The world inverted. For a moment he saw the clearing from above, his body standing in the center, still, motionless, eyes open, rain falling through the canopy in unnatural slow motion. Then the perspective shifted. He was standing at the edge of the clearing, watching himself. The version of him in the center twitched, head tilting slightly, arms hanging longer than natural proportion, shadow pooling incorrectly around its feet. Took a step, not away, toward the trees, toward town, toward the path he had just run. The realization struck with crushing clarity. The rule had never been about being chased. It had never been about something following. It had been about synchronization, about matching pace long enough to replace it. Running created overlap. Overlap created alignment. Alignment created exchange. He tried to move, but he no longer occupied the body in the clearing. He was displaced, stretched thin into the dark between trees. The thing wearing him began walking, slow, measured, learning his gait perfectly. Somewhere deep within the forest where no light touched the ground, something else began to run. A new rhythm, desperate, disoriented, trying to find the path back. Ethan felt himself pulled into that rhythm, pulled into acceleration again. Not beside something, not behind something, but ahead. Forced into motion through dense woods that did not open, that did not end. He ran, because stopping meant feeling the emptiness fully. And in the distance, somewhere beyond layers of trunks and shadow, he saw another figure entering the trail. A jogger, moving at steady pace, unaware. He tried to scream. No sound formed. He tried to stop running. But the forest stretched endlessly in front of him. And behind him, he felt it, matching, learning, waiting for him to slow. Because something follows you if you run in the woods. But eventually, it learns to run as you. If you ever feel something keeping pace with you in the dark, don't test it. Don't sprint. Don't prove how fast you can go. Some things don't chase. They synchronize. And once they do, you don't lose them. You lose your place. If this story unsettled you, subscribe. Because the next one will make you question every shadow that moves when you don't.